Okay. Have you ever noticed that the most nightmarish dystopic movies involve government-mandated happiness? A manic smile that doesn't include the eyes can be the worst betrayal of our humanity toward ourselves and each other. How have we allowed our emotions to become so compartmentalized that Smokey Robinson's Tears of a Clown is treated as an oxymoron? For the sake of our humanity, it's okay to cry when the world expects our laughter, and to laugh when the world expects our tears. During this extraordinary period of chaos and opportunity, it's very human to cope through gallows humor. The other day, I received a questionnaire from the National Cremation Society. In the event of your death, who would be responsible for making your funeral arrangements? I found this question to be very timely and most reassuring. As much as I love the title of my talk, I confess that I struggled with its meaning for a long time. After prolonged reflection, I've concluded that a reality check is an honest assessment of one's emotional truth. Therefore, to cast your reality check is to commit to your emotional truth by being honest to yourself and to others. Rwandan wisdom emphasizes that you can outdistance that which is running after you, but not that which is running inside you. Likewise, Johnny Depp says that you can close your eyes to things that you don't want to see, but you can't close your heart to things that you don't want to feel. Thus, the antidote for the fear of emotional exposure is honesty and clarity. I like to think that God doesn't write bad reality checks. A wise woman, Annie Kopko, recently stated that it's important to be present with your life even if you don't like it. It's equally important to be present with your emotions even though they may be turning you inside out. In my last talk, The Road Taken, I spoke about my joyful childhood self, about how my laughter was so desirable that people went out of their way to cheer me up when I was sad or angry. I also spoke about how the ridicule that I had endured as a child with a cleft lip and palate had taken its toll on my spirit. With no escape at school, I sometimes would come home with unshed tears that would turn to anger at small provocations. When I would bring this anger to the dinner table, my family would do everything in its power to jolly me out of my low mood. The worst thing that my father did was to sing, "Gretchen's mad and I am glad." How mean-spirited and low can a family be? Despite my best effort to hang on to my anger, within seconds I was laughing, albeit grudgingly, with the rest of my family. While I can understand the rationale behind people's desires to provoke joy and laughter, this constant denial of my sadness and anger took its own toll. In addition to being jollied out of my anger, I also had to endure spankings for reasons that I can no longer remember, because my mother felt that I needed to release unexpressed tears. Only later would I realize how twisted these two opposite tendencies were. I relate these stories not to denigrate my family, but to demonstrate how easy it is to tie ourselves in knots over the expression of emotion. Apparently, there's a clinical difference between feelings and emotions. Certainly, the line is rather blurred, but whereas feelings tend to be quiet, internal responses, emotions tend to be messy, external, neurological affairs that involve facial expressions, heart and respiratory rates, vocal volume and pitch, body temperature, tear production, and skin reactions, such as blushing and sweating. Consequently, emotions are more difficult than feelings to conceal, which means that our bodies give us away even when we're in denial. My favorite definition for the acronym denial is, don't even know I am lying. When someone asks, what's wrong, it's likely that he's responding to your physical cues. Kinesics is the study of another's nonverbal body language through movement. Think nervous tics. Before you say, nothing, take a deep breath and assess the physical responses that could easily belie your denial. When someone asks you how you're doing, perhaps the only true feeling is, fine, and the expression, have a nice day, may just be a passive-aggressive attempt to discourage you from getting all worked up about life. While I have certainly emphasized the lighter side of emotion, I much need to acknowledge the very real devastation that this pandemic is wreaking on the world. The literal meaning of catastrophe is turnabout. The world is definitely turning about on so many levels. At the superficial level, the economy is being impacted with massive suspensions and layoffs. At deeper levels, our personal relationships are being impacted by seemingly opposite directives. On the one hand, social distancing compels family units into isolation. On the other hand, that same social distancing discourages non-essential contact, not only with friends and colleagues, but also with already distant family members. In the enforced separation from loved ones, emotional communication becomes a luxury. To protect loved ones from the highly contagious virus, hospitals must make the difficult decision to ban visitation. I recently read a story about a husband sitting by his wife's side in the ICU. As the doctor delivered the news about this ban, the patient's breathing quickened and her ventilator alarm sounded. Her husband moved quickly to lay a calming hand on her shoulder. While one may hope that she recovered, it's very possible that she made the transition without her beloved at her side. For many medical professionals, one of the most worrisome realities of this virus is that patients must die alone. As one doctor states, the devastating images of the lonely deaths of coronavirus patients in Italy hangs over us all. We often don't appreciate the importance of emotional connection until we lose it. Neither do we appreciate how much that emotional connection relies upon our very human tendency to seek the souls of others through their eyes. Nevertheless, we can still enjoy the power of shared laughter and even of shared grief in dark and crowded theaters. As humans, we have at our disposal many emotional tools. Of these tools, the most easily mismanaged seem to be anger and grief. Even laughter can become brittle when it's used to mask or to avoid these emotions. Beware of any comedian who seems to be stuck in a laugh track, whose constant raucous humor belies his fear of an emotional undertow. The challenge is to experience difficult emotions without taking prisoners. As tools, emotions can be used constructively or destructively. Will you use your hammer to build your life or to hit yourself and others over the head? Our human experience confers certain layers of emotional protection that only grief can strip away. Ultimately, the germinating seed reminds us that growth happens in still, dark places. And while there's a difference between visiting at the house of grief and moving in, the time that each person spends in this house is very personal. If you find yourself in this house, it's important to not close your heart to grief's promise in Psalm 126, verse 6. He who goes to and fro weeping, carrying his bag of precious seed, shall indeed come again with a shout of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. The following words are adapted from the inspirational prose of the Invitation by Oriole Mountain Dreamer. It doesn't interest me how strong you are. I want to know whether you'll risk appearing vulnerable. It doesn't interest me how invincible you have become. I want to know whether you have touched the center of your own grief, whether you have been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want you to understand that your emotions, expressed with honesty and clarity, are gifts rather than burdens. That when the high tide of your emotions threaten to carry you away, I will hold your hand to help you to stay grounded. It doesn't interest me whether you can cite positive affirmations. I want to know whether you can live with failure, whether you can sit with your pain or my pain without attempting to deny it. It doesn't interest me how well you're able to hold it together in a crisis. I want to know whether you can smile through your tears when the rainbow appears. So it is.